With Childe's rerun currently out, many people ask, is it still worth to pull for him and how does he compare to the other premier Hydra DPS, Ayato? Honestly, the playstyles of these two characters are fairly similar, and this is what makes choosing one or the other a little difficult. But there are degrees into where that changes astronomically. Both of them are great at applying Hydra on an enemy and can deal massive damage with their kits. Both of their elemental skills provide them with Hydra Infusion and turn their normals into Hydra infused melee attacks. With this in mind, is either of them better than the other? I will answer that and more in this video, but before I start, my name is The Real A-Town, aka RGB Fox, and if you like this video, please consider subscribing as it definitely helps motivate me in creating more content such as this one. Now, whenever I wanted to make this video, I didn't know that Ayato was slated to get a rerun, and just yesterday when the live stream happened, they announced it, so what a perfect time to do it than now. Before we begin to explain their differences, let us talk about their similarities. As stated earlier, their elemental skills change their crummy normal attacks into Hydra infused normal attacks that have their own multipliers, thus rendering their actual normal attacks useless since you don't need them to increase your damage. The great part about the normal attacks is that during the skill infusion, it has a deceptively large AoE, and that could make fighting large mobs of enemies a lot more valuable than sticking to a single target. Both characters also have amazing artifact sets that help push their max potential further, and can even utilize the 4-piece Heart of Depth set to ensure reliable normal attack damage that can be accessed from the Blizzard Strayer domain or in the recently upgraded Artifact Strongbox. Both of these units can also use the 4-piece Shimenawa's Reminiscence in order to improve their normal attack damage. However, it definitely falls flat since both characters have a lot of value from using their elemental burst. As amazing as these artifact sets are, they don't really need it since any 2-piece option can generally beat it with better substats. As if that wasn't enough, they also have great access to 4-star and 5-star weapons, and access to the same team comps. Now, when speaking about teams, this is where their kits get put to the test and the similarities start dwindling. Both of these characters have amazing team options ranging from National to Taser, and even fit in a lot of Dendro comps where one might not find any. Finding which playstyle best suits you is usually determined by how simply you want to play this game. Let's start with the star of the show, Childe. Right off the bat, his kit has paragraphs of text that can be overwhelming to look at, and one can understand why. Starting with the normal attacks, hitting an enemy with a charge shot after it's afflicted with Riptide causes Riptide Flash, a thrice hitting effect on an enemy with standard ICD, and killing an enemy with this effect causes Riptide Burst, which blows up the enemy, dealing AoE damage to surrounding enemies. Riptide Slash is a Hydra AoE damage move that happens when you hit an enemy with a melee attack every 1.5 seconds, and Riptide Blast is a large AoE blast of Hydra that hits when you hit an enemy with his burst in his melee stance. His elemental skill is unique, as it goes under cooldown depending on how long you stay in his melee stance, from as little as 6 seconds to as long as 45 seconds if you stay for the entire duration. This means that if you're not careful, you'll suffer from a massive loss in damage, as not being active in his melee stance keeps your overall damage potential low, and staying too long will make you lose all the buffs that you have, such as Bennett Burst, Kazuha buffs, etc. As if the differences didn't stop there, his burst provides a AoE nuke to the enemies on the field, with 2 different stances determining the damage dealt. Ayato doesn't have any fancy status effects and is generally a lot easier to play. There's little downsides to playing him like a child, and that's due to his fixed cooldown when using his elemental skill, as it lasts for about 6 seconds while the other 6 seconds provide time for his cooldown while he's in the Taki Kanka state. While his multipliers are higher than Childe's, do note that Childe's stance change and charge attacks are a big portion of his damage. Another key difference is that Ayato does end up getting a slight damage bonus based on any HP he has in his substats, so it makes having HP substats deceptively viable, but the difference between having some HP and no HP is minuscule. Unlike Childe's burst, Ayato places down a Hydro Aura on the field that's only slightly smaller than Ganyu's burst, and it deals damage similarly to his burst as well. As if that wasn't enough, the burst also increases his normal attack damage based on the level of the burst, although it caps a 20% normal attack damage bonus at level 10. As you can see, no matter how similar they appear at first, their kits have wildly different effects and utilize those aspects of their kits to fit their niches. While yes, both of them work similarly in similar team comps, I do believe that Childe exceptionally excels in both national comps and in budget comps due to his high damage output and superb Hydra application. This means that with Shanling on your team, you can almost always vaporize or pyronado. This makes him the premier Hydro enabler in this team comp. If that wasn't enough, his high Hydro application makes Virgin teams burn a lot less often, meaning that he will see high competition compared to other Hydro units that try to keep up in a similar situation. However, where Childe shines, there must also be a shadow lurking in the background, basking in its own spotlight, and that is where Ayato comes in. Unlike Childe, Ayato sees a lot more success in freeze teams due to his elemental burst taking up a wide field around his enemies. All this in mind allows for him to take advantage of his AoE attacks and keep Hydra on the enemy consistent enough to keep them frozen most of the time. In that same vein, he is also one of the best characters to use in a fridge team, but how good those teams are is generally up to the type of content you're accessing and if there's mobs of enemies that can be affected by the many seeds you generate through this reaction. Since freezing is so powerful, it allows him to play the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set, although I generally save that for his cryo supports. Another option Ayato has at his disposal is the access to the 4-piece Thundering Fury set, which drastically drops his cooldown on his elemental skill and allows 2 skills per rotation in a taser comp. This set doesn't really work with Childe though, since his cooldown only starts after he switches back into his bow stance, and at that point, it is just better to restart the entire rotation properly. Instead, Childe can use the 4-piece Thunder Soother effect to take advantage of the electrocharge effect on the enemy and increase his own damage output. Now, while these two characters share their ups and downs, each one shares playstyles that can vastly improve their viability, so it is genuinely tough for someone like me to claim which one is better than the other. In this game, whoever is better is generally up to the player, and honestly it depends on the type of roles that they want. If you're looking to have a fun character with a complicated kit that can speedrun most content in the game, then Childe is your go-to. But if you're looking to have a simpler playstyle to get through the content of the game, then Ayato is a solid choice, and any one player of any investment can comfortably play with him. Who you choose is up to you, and how great one is will wholly be determined by your thoughts on the current game. I am lucky to have both of these beautiful men on my account roster and do not regret building both of them to their best potential. Both of them have helped me to get through Spiral Abyss and have been great additions to my teams. Now, whenever I wrote this script down, there wasn't a time frame when Ayato would get a rerun, but just like I predicted there, I did state that Ayato will take long, and I was correct. He is slated to get a rerun here in the next few weeks, well, maybe in like a month or so. So if you're looking to get Ayato, do be patient and know that his rerun will be coming back soon. Childe only has a few days left on the banner as we speak, so if you want to make your decision, I'd suggest you do it sooner or later, because who knows when they'll want to give him another rerun. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you'll like, share, and subscribe as I spend a good amount of time researching, testing, and gathering footage to make sure I have as good as information as possible to give to all y'all. Honestly, my recent Nahida video ended up doing really well, and I'm hoping that this one hits the marker just like that one, so I hope you enjoyed. This has been RGB Fox. Have a good night, and stay safe.